Hello and welcome back to the United Devils YouTube channel. This is a match reaction from last night's game against PSG. United losing the game 3-1 and ultimately failing to qualify for the round of last 16 last night after the PSG game. But still with an opportunity next week against RB Leipzig, where they will need a point in order to secure their qualification to the next round. It was a tough start for United. PSG started brightly. Mbappe and Neymar looked like they had a point to prove, looked like they were on a mission, and they started the game really brightly around the same as the rest of the team. It was a much better PSG team than United faced in Paris a couple of months ago. The likes of Verratti back, Marquinhos back for the French side, so no surprises that they were a different opponent this time round, and it only took them 5 minutes to get an opportunity. Neymar not being picked up at the back post by United's defence and finishing well from a tight angle and giving the French side the lead. And at that point, it looked like it could be a long night for United. It looked like that they wouldn't have the control of their attack like they've had in the two previous wins that Solskjaer's had against PSG. They've managed to keep people like Neymar and Mbappe quite well at this stage. They were running the game, and for the first 20 minutes, it was all about United just trying to stay in the game however they could. Really, PSG threatened to run riot and score a few more goals, and United had a few more nervous moments after the goal, and like I say, probably for the first 20 minutes. But then after 20 minutes, United started to grow into the game, and ultimately from there on in, probably became the better team in the game. To be fair, they got hold of the ball, kept possession better than they had been, and started to carve out a few chances. A glorious chance for Martial, a chance. United just looking much more dangerous going forward than they had in the first 20 minutes. And then the ball breaks down the right, and it's cut back to Marcus Rashford, and he just instinctively shoots from outside the box. It takes a deflection off Diallo. I'm not sure whether it was going in or not, but the deflection definitely wrong foot. Naves goes into the back of the net, and United a level 1-1. And at that point, you're thinking, especially based on the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes, that was what United deserved. They'd grown into the game, they'd shown that they were capable of creating chances and giving PSG problems, and they got a goal for their efforts. And then the game was just very, very sort of intense. It was a hard fought game, tackles flying in everywhere, but there was one moment of petulance from Fred just after United had scored, and he was confronted by Paredes, PSG midfielder, and he definitely, on the replay, you can see Fred leans his head into the challenge. The referee doesn't see it at first. He then goes across. He's alerted by VAR to go across and have a look at the monitor on the side of the pitch. He looked at it very quickly, to be fair, and somehow decided it wasn't a red card. I think Fred was very lucky to stay on the field. I think he probably should have been sent off for that, but ultimately the referee saw it as a yellow card. But the last 10 minutes of the half then just become very fractious. McTominay, I think, fouled Neymar 3 times in a minute leading up to half time. Fred had a couple of more challenges, and you could see that he was definitely playing on the edge. The PSG team had definitely managed to rattle him with their antics and with their play. And ultimately at half time, you're thinking, surely Solskjaer should probably look to get Fred off here and bring on someone like Matic, to just like for like almost in midfield. But when the second half started, he decided to stick with Fred. I think he'd had a word with Fred at half time, or someone had, and just said, look, you need to calm down, because obviously we can't afford to put 10 men down in this game. And like I say, United continued to dominate in the second half. They played really well. Martial with another glorious opportunity. Cavani, who almost scored a delicious goal from range, tripping the goalkeeper, was unlucky to see his effort miss the bar, and then it came back to Martial, and his shot was brilliantly blocked by Marquinhos. And on another night, I think Martial could have had a hat trick, but it wasn't to be, and it stayed 1-1. And then I think the defining moment of the game came on the 69th minute when PSG got their second goal and retook the lead in the game. You know, they had a corner, and the corner came out to the edge of the box, a scuff shot back into the area. Diallo sort of meets it and somehow manages to sort of flick it to one side towards Marquinhos. Marquinhos then just instinctively pokes out a leg and pokes the ball past De Gea. Nothing he could do. Just a real scrappy goal and an unfortunate way for United to go behind, especially having played so well. But it was just there was two instances where it was very close to being offside. Both were checked by VAR, and rightly so, it was onside. But United could feel really hard done by, I think, to concede the goal the way they did, having been on top probably from the 20th minute through to that pivotal second goal that PSG scored. So that's unfortunate. And then it seemed like United were imploding because there was a challenge by Fred a minute after PSG had took the lead that was deemed to be a foul by the referee, and at that point he's given Fred the second yellow card and sent Fred off, and you're thinking, well, United have just imploded here. But when you look at the replays again, there's no way that that's even a foul, let alone a second yellow card. And Fred was very unfortunate to be sent off in that instant. But then again, like I said, he can have not really no complaints, because I think in the first half he should have originally been shown a straight red card for the headbutt. But obviously to go off the way he did would have left a bit of taste, because it definitely wasn't a second booking. But I think when you've had a skirmish like that in the first half and you've been flying into tackles all game, I think the referee's just looking for a reason sometimes to give you that second yellow. And Fred, with the way he lunged into this tackle in the second half and got his second yellow, probably gave the referee what he needed. And then, United continued to try with 10 men. They stuck people like Maguire went forward, so they were launching long balls forward. They were trying to make something happen. Cavani was still on the pitch, and then he went off. McTominay even was trying to become more advanced and cause a problem in their final third. But United often puff really once they went 10 men down, and for all their endeavour, probably didn't look like they were going to get the equaliser, to be fair. And then in the 91st minute, classic counter-attack goal by PSG. United had thrown everyone forward. Lindelof and Maguire were left exposed at the back, and the ball's cut back for Neymar to slot into an empty net and give PSG the game, 3-1. And we go into next week now, like I said earlier in the video, needing a point at Leipzig to seal qualification. And it's difficult because United obviously won their first two games in this group and they put themselves in a really strong position. But I do think if you'd have offered them this scenario at the start of this group, just needing a point in Leipzig, they'd have probably taken it, to be fair, because I think without question this is the hardest group in the Champions League. Not a lot of people would have fancied United to get through. So I think you're asking them to go and get a point against a team that they beat 5-0 at Old Trafford, and a team who are going to have absentees themselves. So United have still got to try and remain optimistic and positive and fancy their chances next week, I think. Onto the player ratings. Like I said, overall it was a very good performance from United. There were some good performances out there, and we'll start with David De Gea. Literally could not do anything about any of the three goals. I mean, some people may say from a tight angle he should do better for the first goal against Neymar, but it was a really good strike across De Gea. He did what he could to try and get something on it, but the finish was that instinctive, that powerful, that sharp, that he wasn't able to save it, and you can't really expect him to. But aside from the goals, that he made a couple of other smart saves. One really good one down low from Mbappe. He also saved one that was going into the top corner as well, a really good instinctive save from him. So I think overall De Gea had a decent night, especially considering he's recovering just back from that sort of knock that he had at the weekend against Southampton. So I'm going to give David De Gea 6.5. Wan-Bissaka, I thought again in the main defensively, he did a good job up against Mbappe. Mbappe was on better form than we've probably seen him in the 2 previous games, but you know, Wan-Bissaka did well, limited into the chances that he did have, and I do feel that he still become a real pain for Mbappe at times when he was trying to get down the right hand side and be a threat from there. So, I'm going to give Wan-Bissaka a 6.5 also. The two centre backs, I thought, defended pretty well again in the main. You know, the only goal the defence can feel disappointed with is the opening goal that just caught them out at the start of the game. Really, you can't allow Neymar to have that sort of time and space at the back post and not pick him up and not track him. So somewhere along the back line there, someone will be disappointed. Whether it's the centre backs, whether it's the left back there of Alex Tellez, I'm not sure, but I think you know, United, considering the way PSG started, I think United did well to regroup defensively and to keep the score down. Certainly up until half time. So I'm going to give both Lindelof and Maguire. I'm going to give them a 7. I thought generally they defended very well, and the nature of the 3 goals were just, from a defensive point of view, you can't really fault them. To be honest, I think the second goal was just such a melee in the box, and that could have bounced anywhere. And another day, that drops to a defender's feet and he clears it away. It didn't today, and that's unfortunate. Alex Tellez, I'm going to give a 6.5 just because I thought defensively, okay, maybe didn't pick Neymar up for the first goal, but also the thing with Alex Tellez that I was a little bit disappointed with last night was he didn't really create enough going forward for me. I think you want, when you've got a left back like Alex Tellez in the team, you're more excited about seeing what he can do in the opponent's final third, and I thought he didn't really get forward enough, and in areas where he could put some of his brilliant crosses into the box, especially with the likes of Cavani playing, I think that could have been a real outlet for United. He did deliver a few good corners, and United these days look a lot better from corners, look much more of a threat when Alex is taking them. But for me, we just didn't quite get to see Alex in the areas that we wanted to last night, and I think sometimes just a bit wayward with his passing, and like I say, with his delivery into the box. Move on to the midfield. Fred, Fred's a tricky one for me because his moment of petulance obviously scored him quite low, but he got away with that. And then I did think that actually, second half, I thought he adapted his game really well, and he calmed down, and he managed to be effective in that deep Man United role without actually having to do any rash tackles or put his neck on the line so much. But he has to be more careful when he knows he's on a yellow card, and the headbutt in the first half was totally unacceptable too. So it's a difficult one because I don't think he played that badly, but ultimately his red card probably cost United the opportunity of getting the point that they needed tonight. So I'm going to give Fred a 5.5, I think. Scott McTominay, I thought, was every bit as good as what Fred was, but without the petulance. So he scores a bit higher for me. I'm going to give Scott McTominay a 7 today. I thought he was a nuisance for Neymar. I don't think he dominated Neymar, but I think, he kept fouling him, and he just kept breaking up all the things that Neymar wanted to do when he was in that midfield area. And although you look at that and you think, well, it's not great play, at the same time, when Neymar's on form like that and he's in the mood, sometimes the only thing you can do is to try and break it up by fouling him, and I think he did it 3 times in the final minute of the first half, and it was really getting to Neymar. So, no, I thought Scott did all right there considering, so I'm going to give Scott a 7, like I say. Moving on to more forward players, Bruno Fernandes. It wasn't one of his best games last night, unfortunately, for United. I just thought his decision making was off last night. There was a few instances where he was sort of 2-on-2, or he had options, or he was in on goal and he would pass rather than shoot, or he would shoot when he would pass. And sometimes, for all the talent that he has, he can be a little bit frustrating with his decision making on certain passes and the way he wants to move the ball. But he's been fantastic for us this season, and he was involved in the build up for the Cavani chance that hit the bar, but it just wasn't a Bruno Fernandes special last night. I don't think by the high standards that we set by him. So I'm going to give Bruno a 6 for last night. Moving on to the front three, we got Martial on the left. Martial had enough chances last night to win that game for United and should have finished at least one of them. I think he could have had a hat-trick with all the shots that he had, but definitely two of them should have been goals. The first one was an open goal pretty much that he managed to put over the bar, and then the second one was a fantastic block by Marquinhos, but again, you just got to expect Martial to score from there. And then the third chance that comes to mind is one that was smartly saved by Navas, which is fair enough. But you just feel at the time when Martial had these chances, that would have been opportunity to put United 2-1, 3-1 up, and then it's looking a very different game, and it's looking a different challenge for PSG. And you just think United, if they'd have took those chances, would definitely have got at least the point that they deserve. So I think ultimately poor finishing cost United last night, and the biggest victim of that was, the biggest criminal of that was probably Martial, most to blame. So I'm going to give him a 5.5 for his performance last night. Moving into the central position, Cavani. I think Cavani last night, he was very unlucky not to finish the goal. It wasn't the sort of chance that Martial had. It was a very clever chip that would have been a fantastic finish if it would have come off. And they're probably the type of finisher that does come off 1 in 10, 2 in 10. So I think that's fair enough. But I think he made some really clever runs if you watch him last night. But the problem with those runs is that they only look effective if they're utilised by the players that are around him. And I think the more Martial and Rashford play, and even Greenwood play alongside Cavani, they have to learn more about his movement and how it can benefit them, because a lot of his movement will benefit Rashford and Greenwood and Martial, because it will create more space for them in the areas of the pitch where they want to be. But because they didn't utilise that last night, we didn't really see it. But I do think Cavani had a decent performance for United coming off the back of what he did at the weekend, so I'm going to give Cavani a 6.5. Moving on finally to Marcus Rashford of the starting 11. Again, a little bit like Bruno, his decision making sent off last night. He didn't make the right choices at times. There's opportunities to shoot, there's opportunities to pass, and he didn't really do that. And one thing I notice with Rashford sometimes is like he'll be running with the ball and he'll be under pressure, and instead of doing something with that ball, he'll just keep running with it. And sometimes he runs down a blind alley, he gets the ball taken off him, and the attack breaks up, and sometimes United can be exposed depending on where that is on the field. Credit to him for scoring, or I don't know whether he'll get credit with a goal, but he was definitely heavily involved in United's equaliser, and credit to him for that. He's becoming a bit of a thorn in the side of PSG, and I think he enjoys playing against them. But just some of his other play all around there, I think at times down United's right, there was a lot of space for him again, and he just didn't quite make the most of it. He wasn't quite killer enough in the areas that counted for United. But I will give him, because he was involved in the game, I will give him a 6 point. He was involved in the goal. Sorry, I will give him a 6.5. But actually, if it hadn't been for the goal, I think he'd have probably scored 6. To be fair, in terms of the substitutes that come on, we saw Pogba come on, and although he didn't necessarily influence the game as Solskjaer would have liked, as we would have liked, he did have an unbelievable effort on the volley from outside the box. It was just over the bar, and if that had gone in, that would have been a hell of a goal, and probably just what he needed basically to get himself back into some sort of form. But unfortunately, he couldn't quite keep it down enough, and it just went over. Greenwood came on, didn't really get an opportunity in the game. I mean, when Greenwood comes on late like that, you're looking for him to receive the ball in areas where he can show his prowess, finishing, shooting. He didn't really get that kind of service. He come deep at times and tried to get involved in the play and move the ball, but that's not really his game at the moment. We want to see Greenwood in the areas where he can beat a man, take a shot, because when he shoots, his accuracy is really good. He's probably one of the best finishers at the club. But those opportunities didn't arise for him, and then we saw the forgotten man Odion Igalo come on for literally the last couple of minutes of the game. But I think he probably touched the ball once or twice. It was difficult for him to get any involvement that late in the game. But I think United were just so keen to try and get another attacker on the field. So, but ultimately, it didn't work out for him either. So out of the substitutes, I think I'd give Paul a 6. I'd have to give Mason a 5.5, and I don't. It's harsh to rate Igalo because he literally come on for 2 minutes, touch the ball twice, but we'll give him a 5, and yeah. So see what happens now. Like I say, going into the game next week against Leipzig, there's no doubt about it though. United will have to turn some of those 6 performances into 7.5s, and those 6.57s will have to turn into 8.5s if they want to see an improvement and ultimately want to get the job done in Germany next week. Thanks. Do like and subscribe this video if do like this video if you've enjoyed it, and do subscribe to the channel. There is plenty of fantastic content on here before every game and during the week with our podcast and everything like that. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.